Well, good evening, everyone. If you can hear me out there in the land of Facebook, if you could put a thumbs up or put something in the comment section so that we know that the microphone is working, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Well, I've got 7 o'clock by my clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Bergstrom, and I'm lucky enough to be the superintendent here for Sauk Rapids-Rice Public Schools. And I want to thank you for taking time this evening to join me on this Facebook Live event. For those who have been here and been a part of these Facebook Lives in the past, welcome back. Thank you for being here as well. If you are new to this, I hope you find this session to be helpful. I want to talk a little bit about what the purpose of this, for those who might be new. The purpose of these sessions are for me to be able to share some information with you in terms of what's going on in the district, and it's also designed for me to be able to answer questions that you might have in regards to things that are going on in the district. Sometimes topics that need to be talked about cause some varying degrees of emotions with people. I want to remind everybody that this is a school district event, and so please, when you are writing your questions, to do so respectfully. And again, it is designed as an opportunity for me to try and answer your questions throughout the course of tonight's session. So the question might be, how do you get the questions to me? Well, what we'll ask that you do is in the comments section for Facebook, you can go ahead and type in your question. I've got a couple of people here. Thank you, Nicole and Christy, for being here again tonight. They will grab those questions and they'll put it on a post-it for me. You'll see me occasionally step off the monitor because I'm going to grab those questions and I'll try to answer them. Sometimes there's questions that I can't answer or I need more information, and I'll certainly let you know that. And then at the next Facebook Live session, I'll try to bring those questions up and then answer them for you. Again, we've been doing a really good job this year of being respectful with each other. I greatly appreciate that, and I hope that that will continue again tonight. So, as we are waiting for questions to be brought forward, I want to talk about a couple of things to make sure that everybody is aware of. And I want to start with a very important piece for us, which is kindergarten registration for the class of 2036. And I'm going to share some information with you in regards to kindergarten registration. So I'm going to start with, we are excited to offer our kindergarten resource page on our webpage. You can get there, families can go to www.isd47.org. Again, that is www.isd47.org, and view the kindergarten resources section, or you can go to register online. And there you will find a number of different resources, including the opportunity for families to register their students. You can also do that during kindergarten open house, which I'll talk a little bit more here about in just a few moments. That happens in February, but you can go there, you can get started with registration and getting your child ready for kindergarten for the upcoming year. Just a gentle reminder that students to enter into kindergarten need to be 5 by September 1, in this case of 2023. If you turn 5 after that, you'd have to wait for the next year. So again, if your child is turning 5 prior to September 1 of 2023, you are eligible to come to kindergarten. Please go to the Kindergarten Resources tab on our website, www.isd47.org, and you'll find a litany of information there that will be helpful in getting your child ready for kindergarten. For those who are attending preschool, either in Rice or at Hillside here in Sauk Rapids, please note that you are not automatically registered to attend kindergarten, so you'll have to go through that registration process as well. I'm not seeing any questions at this time, so I'm going to keep talking a little bit about kindergarten registration. I mentioned a little earlier that we're going to have an open house again, as we've done for a number of years. And that open house is going to be on Monday, February 27th, 2023. Additional information, time, etc. will be coming from each of the buildings, as the information based upon the address determines which school that students will be going to. And so you'll be getting information from those schools early in February to prepare for the Monday, February 27th, 2023 kindergarten open house. Again, open house is happening on the 27th of February. It's a chance for your child to get to be able to meet and interact with kindergarten teachers and then get a tour of the school, as well as for parents and guardians to submit any forms. If there's one thing that we are good at in the land of education, is we've got lots of forms for people to fill out, and so that can be a great opportunity to get those turned in and filled in if necessary. If you are interested in registering your student right away, that process will begin tomorrow. The tab may be open right now, but I know for sure it's going to be open for starting tomorrow, January 5th. And if you register online and have the documents that you need to have to be uploaded, please feel free to do so. If you don't have that, you can bring the documents and we'll help you get those uploaded during the open house on the 27th of February. To register your child for kindergarten, you're going to need the following documents. Those documents include an original birth certificate. A copy will be made and the original will be returned to you, but it has to be an original birth certificate, your immunization record or physical form, and proof of residency such as a recent utility bill. So again, coming to the open house, and if you're going to be doing some registration there, we'll help you with that. We'll have people there to support with that, but you're going to need to have, whether you do it there or if you do it yourself, you're going to need that proof of residency. You're going to need a copy, or not a copy, you need the original birth certificate, and then immunization records in a physical form. Those are the items that will need to be included as a part of the registration process. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the elementary schools. That would be Mississippi Heights and Pleasant View Elementary here in Sauk Rapids, and Rice Elementary in Rice. It looks like I got a question, so I'm going to go grab that right now. So the first question I have here is actually two questions. So the first one is, who makes the school closing decisions? Well, the final decision rests with me as a school superintendent. That decision is not made in isolation, but rather it is, there's a lot of of information that and phone calls that are made to help make that decision. Some of the pieces of information that are used, I'll make phone calls and talk with Benton County Roads Supervisor to see how the roads are and are they going to be plowed. I have conversations with the city of Sauk Rapids as well as to see where the roads are going to be at there. We get our information from the National Weather Service. Early on this fall, we talked a little bit about the idea that there are lots of different places in which you can get information from with the weather, and we have chosen to use the National Weather Service / NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and that's where we get our information from. They oftentimes will do webinars, and so we listen in on those as well. We have contact with the bus company for us, that's Voights, and to see where they're at. And then the other piece that comes with this is we've gone back to the decision being made for Sauk Rapids Rice, Sartell St. Stephen, and St. Cloud area schools. We're doing that together. So also having conversations with those people. And through that process, a decision is made in terms of whether or not we're going to have an early release, a late start, or if school is going to be canceled. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision rests with me, but there's lots of feedback from people to try and help us make that decision. Now, the second question is, when will it be figured out that we need more than one snow day? And I'm not quite sure I'm understanding where that's at, but what I will share with you is that the decision as to whether or not we're going to make some adjustment with the school day is not one that's made lightly. Obviously, there's going to be safety concerns that come into play with this that will motivate decision making. But the other piece of it is what's the weather doing? And I got asked this question the other day about, well, what's your threshold, Superintendent Bergstrom, for the amount of snow? And my answer is it depends. If it's fluffy snow and there's not much wind, we can certainly tolerate a little bit more snow. Buses can move. Traffic does not seem to be impacted by that, because not only are we worrying about buses and getting students to school, we have to take into consideration we have students that walk. We also have families who transport their students here. And then at the secondary level, particularly at the high school, we have students who are driving. And so when it's the fluffy snow, it generally is not, we can tolerate a little bit more of that, and vehicles can move relatively easily through that. But if you get 3 or 4 inches of wet, heavy, slushy snow, that's going to have a huge impact. It can also be where it might be a couple of inches of snow, but if the wind is blowing and it's creating visibility issues, again, that can impact the decision that needs to be made with school. Now, under ideal conditions, what we would have is we'd have a decision made the night before, and we know exactly what's going to happen, and we move forward from there. But it doesn't always work out that way. Cold temperatures, generally a little easier to predict where they're going to be at, but snow, it just seems like oftentimes we're on the edge of where blizzard warnings might be, where winter weather storms are going to be falling and coming, and a movement of a storm 20 to 30 miles east, west, north, south is not out of the ordinary and can have a profound impact on what's going to be happening. The decision with what you're going to do with school, it's not an exact science. I tend to refer to it as being an art, and it's a little bit of predicting based upon what you're hearing from the Weather Service, gathering that input from county and city workers in terms of where roads are going to be at, talking with the bus company, having conversations with the other school districts. And when you think about the massive area that encompasses those 3 school districts, it's not uncommon to see weather on one end of the region look different than what you're going to see on the other end. And again, it's not an exact science. And at the end of the day, ideally make a decision, everybody knows, notify families, and away we go from there. Oftentimes, we have to wait until the morning of. We've made a commitment to make a decision by 5:30, and there have been times, and twice this year, when we have made a decision we're going to do one thing and then had to turn around and change that because weather conditions changed and getting students, transporting students was unsafe, and so therefore we had to make a change. And I realize that this creates a lot of turmoil for families. And it is the one thing that, from a very personal perspective, I try not to do. I really do prefer to try and make that decision early enough so families can plan. The drawback to that is sometimes the weather changes and we would not have had to dismiss early, or we maybe could have been in school for a longer period of time, or wouldn't have had that late start. But there's also plenty of times when it works out exactly what the weather people say it's going to be, and we keep kids safe. And I have shared on a number of different occasions with people, I understand that weather making decisions is going to, when that decision's made, it's going to aggravate some, and others are going to be perfectly okay with that. I would rather have a conversation with a parent, a guardian, or a grandchild or grandparent that why didn't we have school we could have versus why did you put those students out into danger and my child, my grandchild, my niece, my nephew was placed in jeopardy. And that's hard to defend, although it can happen. And I'm not going to say that it won't ever happen, but it is something that goes a lot into the thought process in regards to what are we going to do with the weather. I see there's a couple of more questions, and so I'm going to try to get to those right now. So the first question that I have here is how many e-learning days before we have to start making it up? So the state of Minnesota has in statute that we can have, when I say we, districts can have 5 e-learning days before you can no longer use that as a strategy. And as of January 4th, 2023, we have used 3 of those. I'll take you back to the calendar when it was developed. The first day that we had where school was canceled was a traditional snow day. And so then from that point forward, we had the 5 e-learning days. So we have used 3 at this point, and 5 is the threshold before we would have to start looking at strategies in regards to making up days. The next question is, are we 2 hours late tomorrow? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. Prior to this, I had reached out to the county to see where we're at with roads being plowed. In fact, when I first started talking in the Facebook Live session here, I got a call from the county supervisor, and I'll be calling him back to see where it's at. Again, one of the things questions we'll be asking is, are the roads going to be plowed? I heard from plenty of people today that lots of roads were not plowed in the morning, and it made it challenging for people to get here. I do want to say, and I think it's really important to note this, is that I'm very appreciative of our county plow drivers and the city plow drivers, whether they be St. Cloud, Sartell, Rice, or Sauk Rapids. I am very appreciative of the efforts that they put in to try and keep roads open and clear. These storms that we've had this winter, not only has the timing of them been as bad as it can be for us, but like even today, it has just kept snowing. And while they forecasted that it would keep snowing, we could get another 2 to 4 inches. There was times when the snow was coming down at a pretty good rate. This morning, it was a little fluffier, and wind was blowing it sideways, and it got to be a little heavier. It's just been, if there is a perfect storm, for lack of a better phrase, to discuss the timing and what kind of snow and when we're getting it, that is just the least advantageous for us to make good decisions and maybe still be allowed to get part of a day in. It's just not happening this year, which makes it a challenge. So the question is, why do we only have 1 traditional snow day and St. Cloud has 3 before they start e-learning? Well, St. Cloud, I'm going to start a little bit with St. Cloud based upon what I know. Dr. Putnam and I and Dr. Reidelhoover over in Sartell, we have spent a lot of mornings and evenings and afternoons on the phone with each other in the last month talking about weather. But what St. Cloud has is they have what they call flexible learning. And they did not have any snow days. They went right into flexible learning. Now the last 2 days that we have not had school, they have had snow days based upon the fact that they haven't had students in class, and they made that decision to go to snow days. For us, we made that decision because of the limited amount of days that we have off before we have to start making days up. So we have 170 student contact days. The state of Minnesota says that you cannot move less than 165. If you do, you will lose funding with that. You can do that, but you will lose funding. And so what we try to do is two things. From a financial perspective, stay above that 165, but more importantly, I think it's for an educational reasons. We want to make sure that we stay above, we get kids here as often as, our students here as often as we possibly can. So again, to the question, St. Cloud has not had, to my understanding, has not had 3 snow days. They've had the last 2 days. When we had our first snow day, they had a flexible learning day, and very similar to what we call our e-learning. They just call it a different name, but the philosophy is the same, and so that's where they've been at. So the next question is, can more snow days be added and less e-learning? And the answer to that is yes. Sure, we can. And that sounds pretty simple to do so, but there's some things that we need to think about with that question. Number one is, we've already planned a calendar, and families and staff make plans in particularly around specific times when there is going to be an extended time off. And we also know that families make arrangements and staff have plans in place where when the school year is over, they're either going to another job or they are going to be doing something different. And so by just adding days during the year, it can be done if we need to in order to make sure we keep that minimum number of days, but it's not as simple as just adding more days. The other piece that comes into play is that, and part of the reason we went to the e-learning is that in the past, we have used days, we've identified days in February, we've identified days around the Easter holiday where they're time off, but now all of a sudden we gotta have school. We have found attendance is very poor because again, families have made plans, staff have made plans, and they're just not here. And adding days to the end of the year gets to be very challenging again because families have made arrangements, families have made plans, and as had staff. And at the end of the day, we question the effectiveness of adding days during the year. Can it be done? Absolutely. Is it ideal? No. It's ideally what we want is students in school. That's what we want. Them students being here is the number one piece that we want to see in place. And so we went the route of e-learning because we did learn during the pandemic that we can do some learning, while not as effective and as good as what we have that when we have students in the building with their teachers. We do know that it is a workable solution and can provide some continuance of learning when we have snow days. And then those days don't have to count against that total that we have of trying to stay above that 165 mark. So the next question is, has it been decided what dates might be switched to in-school days? So when we developed the calendar, which you can go to the website and you can see that calendar, we identified 3 different days that would be student contact days. And those 3 days on the front end include February 17th, which is a Friday, April 10th, which is a Monday, and then June 2nd, which is a Friday. So when I was talking earlier about can we add days? Yes, we can. We have identified those days as potential dates for us to utilize if we go through all of our e-learning days and we still have to cancel school. So at the end of the day, those days are there. The issue that oftentimes surfaces is that, so what happens if it happens in March and now February 17th is up? Well, then you got to look at April 10th as that day. And again, families make plans, our staff have made plans, and it's really hard to ask them to change those plans. But we have shared on the front end that if we go through those e-learning days and we still need to cancel school, that those are the 3 days. February 17th, which is a Friday, April 10th, which is a Monday, and then June 2nd, which is a Friday. So the question here is e-learning for elementary, they choose from choice boards. Is anyone working on other things they can do? And it's a great question. And where I'm going to go with this might be a little different than maybe what the person who asked the question would have been thinking about. One of the things that I'm very proud of the work that we do in this district is we forward think and we try our best to develop plans and strategies that are aware of family needs and what's good for our students and how can our staff help support that. And we put together what I think is a very thorough and thoughtful plan. But as we get into doing things, sometimes we find that, you know, what sounded good on paper or what made sense during our discussion is something that can be, it's just not going to work very well. So what we will do is we have to sometimes take a step back and take a look at that. And we will plan on doing that. I don't think in our wildest dreams that we would have imagined that we'd already be 3 e-learning days into the 5 that we can possibly have on January 4th of 2023. But we will certainly take a look at what's working, what's not working, and in order to try and find ways to best support students to continue that learning when the weather is such that it doesn't allow us to bring kids to school. One of the great things about technology is that sometimes you can get answers immediately. So the question I'm going to come back to is anyone working on other things they can do? And the answer to that question is yes, from all the principal, on all principals' instructions for today. So the answer to the question is yes, we are looking at that. I'm going to put these away here real quick. So again, I'll come back to, you know, we put together a plan for e-learning that would meet the requirements and so we can continue learning. And then ultimately at the end of the day, we've had a lot of very unique situations that have happened this year. And so it will behoove us to take a look at that, and we plan to do that and garner maybe some feedback from families along the way as well and from our students to find out what's working, what's not working. Ideally, again, we want students in school. I was a frustrated superintendent this morning because I wanted to bring our kids and our staff back in, but ultimately at the end of the day, we got to make sure that we're doing that safely. And it's a very tough conversation to have with a parent or a guardian. If a bus goes in the ditch, if their child is on a bus and it's stuck, and they might be there for a period of time because we just don't have a lot of extra bus drivers, that's a tough conversation to have with a parent as to why you would allow school. And the unique thing for me is for when the decision is made, I'll get some feedback, and I am not a very smart person from some, and then from others, I get that I'm a genius. I'm neither of those. The decision that we make when it comes time for making alterations in the school day is really based upon the safety for our students, for our staff, and for our families. And then can we try to continue the learning that is so very, very important on those days when we can't have school at all. And that's where the e-learning piece comes into play. Take a look here, and I got another question coming here. Okay, I thought I had a question, I don't, so there we go. As we think about weather and what this means, I'm truly, I'm truly sorry that when we make a decision, especially like we had to do today, where we were going to be 2 hours late, and then we pivot at 7:30 in the morning and have to do something different. I'm very aware of the chaos and the issues that it creates for families, and particularly for our families with younger children. 7:30, some people are already at work, and at 5:30 you hear Plan A, and this is what we're going to do, and then we have to pivot. And I realize that this really does create a lot of issues for people, and we try as best we can to do that. To not do that, I should say. We don't want to create that kind of chaos for families and that scrambling that can happen. And when we can, we will make a decision and let people know the night before so that plans can be made. But ultimately, it's weather decides where things are going to be at, and we get a lot of feedback from people. A little earlier, I was asked the question about, what's going to be the plan for tomorrow, and I said that I don't know. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things that, with regards to this kind of a question. It's been asked of me of other decisions in Facebook Live meetings that we've had here, and I'm not going to make a decision, especially one about the weather, on Facebook Live about tomorrow. That's just, I don't think that's appropriate, and I wouldn't be following the protocols and the process that we have in place in order to help try and make that best decision. We're going to need to consult with the National Weather Service. We're going to have to talk with our transportation partners. We're going to have to talk with our county and city partners to see where roads are going to be at, and that will take some time. If we wind up being here till 8 o'clock or about that time period, it's going to take a little bit of time for me to gather that information, and I'm not comfortable in making a decision until I have all of that information. And even then, like I said earlier, it's a bit more of an art than it is of a science. But just to reiterate that I won't make decisions about where we're going to be at, such as a decision for tomorrow on Facebook Live, because I got to make sure that I follow the protocols that I have put into place in order to help arrive at the best decision to keep our students, our families, and our students and our staff. Sorry, I got a text message that showed up on my computer screen here, distracted me, to make sure that all three of those groups are safe. Okay, I spent some time, I don't see any more questions right now, so I finished talking a little earlier about kindergarten registration, and so now I want to move into some of the upcoming events that we've got going on. First of all, we got District Spelling Bee, January 9th from 6 to 8 o'clock, and that will be at the Sauk Rapids Rice Middle School. So again, District Spelling Bee coming up on January 9th. We're also getting into conference season, and those kick off here starting at the middle school. They're going to have in-person conferences on January 10th from 4 until 8, and then they'll follow up with conferences from 4 to 8 again on January 12th, but those will be virtually. So January 10th, 4 to 8 in person, January 12th, 4 to 8, and those will be virtual. And I think I have another question here, or a statement, or... So the question here is there any way to put in your budget of paying bus drivers when they can't work on snow days? So two interesting parts for that question. Thank you for asking that. Number one is we are contracted with a bus company, and so we just pay a flat fee based upon the number of routes and a number of factors that go with that. It is up to the bus company to make the determination as to whether or not they are paid or not paid during snow days, which is another very interesting dynamic that comes in with this, and that is for some staff, when there is a snow day, it is a day of no pay for them. And we all know in these challenging economic times that a loss of a day's wages because of the weather can be very difficult and very hard to have to deal with. So again, just another one of those factors that enters into the formula in regards to what are we going to do with school. Is it going to be a late start? Is it going to be an early release? Or are we going to be canceling? So again, that would be up to the bus companies, and I do not know what their practice is and what their strategies are with that. So that would be up to them to make that decision. All right. Again, continuing with some of the upcoming events, I'm looking to see, I don't see any questions at this time. I'll reiterate again, Sauk Rapids Rice Middle School is kicking off conference season. That will be on January 10th from 4 to 8. Those are in-person conferences. And then on January 12th from 4 to 8, there'll be conferences, but those will be held virtually using Google Meets. We have Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 16th is a day off, federal holiday. Childcare is available for students in kindergarten through 8th grade. Childcare is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Central Minnesota, and those programs include Kids Stop at Pleasant View and Mississippi Heights for students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade, and the Eastside Boys and Girls Club for grades 6 through 8. Childcare is also available at Rice Elementary for students in preschool through grade 5. Please note that there is a charge for this service, and families will need to register their child or their children if they have not already done so. So if you haven't signed up or registered, please know you cannot just show up on that day and drop your child off. And part of the reason for the registration process is to make sure that our child care groups can staff appropriately. There's some very strict guidelines in terms of the number of students that you can have based upon age levels, and we need to make sure, and they need to make sure that they are properly staffed, and that's where the registration piece comes in. And again, there is a charge. In the past, during the pandemic, there was an opportunity for free care, but as we've evolved and moved out of the pandemic, we're returning to our previous structures, which is a charge for this service. Speaking of conferences, I talked about the middle school on January 10th and 12th. Let's move on to the high school. They have conferences on January 18th from 4 until 8, and then again on January 19th, again from 4 until 8. For the conferences on the 18th, it is College Fair and Junior Information Night. So for those families who have 11th graders or juniors, there'll be some information. It's an information night for you. And then there's also a college fair, which is a great opportunity for students and families to do some exploring in terms of what might be some options out there. And one of the things that I oftentimes talked about, even when I was a principal, is really when we talk about college, it's not just referencing the four-year programs, which certainly can be an option, but there's also plenty of opportunities out there in the vocational or career technical area for shorter lengths of time. We've got some great institutions in this region that provide some excellent training, whether you're interested in early childhood, you might be interested in HVAC, you could be interested in electrical work, you could be interested in law enforcement. There are opportunities, and so college is not just referencing those four-year programs, but also some of our trades and vocational programming. Great opportunities for our students, and great opportunities for them to earn a good living and to have a job that they enjoy doing. Speaking of, we talked a little bit earlier about the 16th will be a day of no school. On the 25th, we're going to have an early release. It's to allow our staff opportunities to collaborate and do some of the work that they have been working on all year long. They've been doing some great work across the district with that. Again, on the early release day, childcare is available for students in kindergarten through 8th grade. Childcare is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Central Minnesota and includes Kids Stop at PV and Mississippi Heights. Childcare is also available for the Storm After School for grades 6 through 8, and then childcare is also available at Rice for students in grades preschool through grade 5 through Rice Kids Club. And again, there's a charge for this service, and families will need to register their children if they have not done so. And then finally, put on your calendar, the Stars of the Storm editions will be held on February 7th, and also Tuesday, February 7th and Thursday, February 9th here at Sauk Rapids Rice High School. Sign-up information will be coming soon from Mr. Mick. So again, a great opportunity to try out for the talent part of the Stars of the Storm, which is a wonderful evening and a fundraiser for the Sauk Rapids Rice Education Foundation, which does some great work in providing dollars for staff through the grant process to get those things that a normal budget might not be able to provide, and we are very appreciative of the efforts and the work that goes into the Stars of the Storm event, and then the partnership that we have with the Education Foundation. So the question here is, how do parents get the text for school opening late or cancel? There is a way for that to happen. I will urge you to reach out to your child's school and visit with them, and they can walk you through that process. They can send you the communication to do that, but please reach out to your child's school. I cannot emphasize enough of the importance of making sure that you sign up for this service. It is, while we do provide opportunities through television, through radio, and our website, the text message and email is probably the fastest. We generally notify staff first, followed very quickly by parents, and then it gets out to the media. So that sometimes that 10 or 15 minute delay between if I'd have gotten it with the family communication to when the media gets it, and especially in mornings like today, that extra time can be certainly helpful as you are trying to pivot when decisions are made that cause school to be canceled. So the question is, are high school conferences in person both nights? I believe the answer to that is yes, but I'm going to ask that we text the high school principal, and maybe before we sign off here tonight, we can get an answer for that, because I do think that there is an option for virtual, but I don't know all of the details with that. So we'll go. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, whoever did. I appreciate that, and we'll try to get an answer here before I sign off tonight. All right. I think that those are, I've gotten through all the announcements that I want to get through. I think we've spent quite a bit of time talking about the weather, and which I anticipated that we would be. And again, I want to emphasize a couple of things. One, that there is a rather lengthy process and a lot of questions that get asked in regards to what were before that decision is made. I am truly sorry when we have to pivot quickly, especially when we say one thing and then we pivot and do something else. We did one in December where we're going to be a 2-hour late start, and then we had to cancel. And then of course there was this morning with notification at 5:30 that we were going to be 2 hours late, and only to 2 hours later change because of buses unable to travel on roads and the risk that's there. And I don't like doing that. I really truly don't. I understand the trepidation that it creates for families, and we will do our best to try and avoid those situations. Sometimes Mother Nature is going to do what she wants to do and leaves us with no choice, but we will again try to follow our process and see where it's at. I might have an answer to the high school conferences. So the answer to the question of high school conferences, January 18th, they will be in person, and January 19th, they will be virtual. And for high school parents, more information will be coming out in the parent newsletter this coming Friday. So again, high school conferences, January 18th and 19th. The 18th is also when there's the college fair and junior information night. That will be in person. And then January 19th will be virtual. I will tell you, I have heard from a number of different parents guardians over the last couple of years that the opportunity for the virtual conferences has been very helpful, and it is allowing them to be able to attend conferences when there was only the in-person option, they might not be able to. So again, January 18th in person, January 19th is going to be virtual. Thank you to Principal Lagruno for the quick response to the text message. Greatly appreciate that. Another fine example of our administrators being responsive at all different times of the night. So thank you, Ms. Lagruno. I'm looking over at my team here, and it looks like we have exhausted the question piece. So again, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Our next Facebook Live will be, I think it's Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, but it'll be that first Wednesday in February. In fact, let me take a quick peek here on my calendar just to verify that date. That is correct. It'll be Wednesday, February 1st. Until then, take care and have a great evening, and go Storm.